Austin, basking in its status as one of America's biggest boom towns.
The nation's migratory hub for those seeking great music, amazing food, and incredible weather.
And if you're ever in Austin, well, right, for what? The art, the music, the incredible nightlife.
It's out at the Moon Town.
Austin's boom has also been boosted by its surging tech industry.
Well, Tesla has chosen the Austin area for its next vehicle assembly plant.
It's young, it's hip, it's very interesting.
How will we adapt and evolve to booming growth?
In the next 20 years, the number of people is expected to double.
Austin is filled with parks and trails, but it's also filling up with people as well.
Austin, Texas has never been less safe than it is today.
A team of Austin city officials and police officers cleared campers who've been living on the sidewalks outside of City Hall.
Save Austin Now is trying to get 50,000 signatures in 50 days.
Since the ordinances changed nearly 2 years ago, things have gotten way out of balance.
The status quo in Austin is not working.
Capacity is a serious concern for the city.
Most people that work for the city had no interest in talking to us.
Austin can be a world-class city. It's not right now.
Phase 2 of the homeless enforcement plan is happening all across the city.
And so holding on to my music that I do, and even though I've been through 1,000 different guitars and people have stolen my guitars or whatever, and like holding on to my faith in God and having random shit happen like that, because when you're homeless, you're pretty much hopeless, dude.
Well, more than 60 people have been moved into transitional hotel housing.
Austin police have begun driving through the Greenbelt and informing campers that they also must vacate.
Let the police officers ticket and arrest anybody that's doing that in a way that's blocking or impeding or threatening or causing any measure of public safety risk or public health hazard.
The fire began at a homeless camp nearby.
The city says anything that was trashed was abandoned.
People living in tents will not be moved right away.
The sight of homeless camps in downtown Austin may not be as common as it is now.
No one really gives a shit, dude. And that's really, really sad.
My name is Brett Hopkin. I'm a music producer and a music teacher here in Austin. I teach music at a school called Dub Academy, where we teach people how to produce music, how to DJ, music theory.
Hey, my name's Dustin Mehaffey, and I'm a real estate broker here in Austin, Texas. I've got a commercial and a residential brokerage.
I'm from San Antonio, Texas, but really I grew up and went to high school in a town called Cibolo, just outside of San Antonio.
I grew up in West Texas, small town, population 1,100, super small town. Robert Lee, it's about 4 hours northwest of Austin. A good buddy of mine owns a music festival called Illfest, and Brett is a music producer who has done quite a bit of work with them. I reached out to him and was asking him about Ableton, which is a music production software, and wanted to take lessons in that.
And through that we became pretty good friends.
When COVID happened, I was just about to sign a lease on some office space downtown and decided to wait on that, thank goodness. Actually rented a place downtown in a high-rise. Living in this high-rise overlooking the town lake, I saw 2 or 3 tents when I moved in, and then eventually
you quite literally can just look out the window and see every day there's new tents or more trash or
tents as far as the eye could see. This was kind of an odd situation.
And we would just stand on the balcony and in disbelief of that someone literally lived right there on the sidewalk.
We just wanted to try and dive into it a little deeper than just the numbers. And since I was living right in the middle of it and Brett was working with me weekly, it just seemed like a good time to make the jump, see what we could do.
There's literally 3 people producing this film. We don't have a makeup guy. We don't have someone planning a production schedule. We're not movie producers.
In this documentary, we're really trying to give a neutral perspective. We want to document stuff and not try and sway people one way or the other on how to think or what this is or what that is.
Our main approach was just to come straight from the middle, and that's because we really didn't know anything about this whole subject.
We really wanted to try and offer a perspective of this that most people aren't going to get just from reading the statistics, and actually, go talk to some of these people and try and, understand who they are.
So it is unfortunate that that we didn't get to talk to anyone that actually works for the city, but I think it also lets us let in a little bit more of that human element as well.
Witnessing the growing homeless population downtown outside my front door and starting to hear the term Prop B thrown around, Brett and I were interested to learn more to form our own thoughts and opinions, so we decided to dig deeper.
It seemed like a lot of people didn't even know exactly what they were voting for. Every time I talked to someone, I would get a different opinion, or they just seemed to not know much about the subject at all.
Simply put, voting yes for Prop B would reinstate the city's camping ban, meaning it would be illegal to camp in certain places, sit or lie on public sidewalks, and panhandle at night. Voting no would not reinstate that ban.
I'm Cleo Patricic. I'm the co-founder of Save Austin Now.
Matt Makoviak, I'm also co-founder of Save Austin Now. We created Save Austin Now to educate citizens, to engage them, and to give them opportunities to have their voice heard. I saw the direct consequences of the camping ordinance visibly throughout downtown immediately. And so on July 17th, I was at a meeting with some people, and I said something about how I thought this problem had been really just a downtown problem, and I was quickly corrected by a number of people in Onion Creek and River Place and Northwest Travis County and all over the area that said they were already seeing consequences in their areas as well. So that prompted me to start an online petition that night, basically promoting the idea that we should reinstate the camping ban that was in place for 23 years when there was no crisis.
Lucky for us, the day we began filming turned out to be the last day of early voting on Prop B. So we decided to go find out what the average person on the street thinks or even knows about Prop B.
Appreciate that.
Yep. Sure. I'm sorry, I am running back to work, so I can't stay and talk, but fuck Prop B.
Okay,
yes.
Right on. Noted. Prop B, want to see if you had any opinions? Nope, just stuck in the phone. Any opinions on Prop B you want to share with us just for a quick second?
No.
That's okay, no problem. Thanks for your time.
As we had anticipated, many people didn't want to discuss how they felt on camera. However, there were some brave souls. To our surprise, the ones that would talk were split about down the middle.
I guess the lifting of the camping ban affected you.
It's been weird. Usually when I grew up here and come downtown or go to the Greenbelt, there wouldn't be as much trash everywhere.
Sure.
You can kind of feel safe going there. And then they're kind of, I don't know if you heard about the tower getting vandalized and burning down.
Fire.
Yeah, it was on fire. And so it's kind of just created an unsafe environment. It's not the Austin I grew up knowing to love. And I think that's why you can see the line growing.
Making their existence illegal is not like actually moving them into shelter and getting them counselors and getting them the medication or real support they need. So I understand the concern, but I just didn't think Prop B was a real solution.
But at the end of the day, mental health is 99% of what we're dealing with. So let's get them those services and help them out.
I've seen it a couple of times, because I've been to Austin a couple of times, so I've seen it become more in your face, but that's also happened in the Bay Area. I'd say within the last 10-ish years, you're seeing a lot more of the homeless situation.
I would also assume that because of the land and availability around the area in the South, I would assume that housing would be a little bit easier to build in here rather than in California just because of the environmental regulations.
My friend said he saw somebody on the interstate in a tent, and it was like, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
But I don't see how banning such people is actually going to provide a solution. I really feel for those.
The votes came in, and Prop B ultimately passed.
And on May 1st, nearly 91,000 people voted to reinstate the camping ban, not because they hate homeless people, but because they hate what camping is doing to our city and to the homeless.
After seeing how many votes were opposing Prop B, I began to see how divided this city was on this subject. But a few days later, something began to happen at City Hall that gave us a great opportunity to get a more unique perspective. Hey guys, so I'm producing a documentary. I'm curious if y'all be interested in maybe telling me a little bit of your story, why y'all are here and stuff.
Yeah, sure, I'll tell you.
And what's your name? Amy. What's your name, boss? Chris. The first woman that I met out at City Hall, her name was Amy. She told me she wasn't originally from Austin, but she heard about coming here through living in other communities around the country.
Do you think this statement that everyone's trying to make would have been more effective had they done it before the vote?
They should have done it, of course. Why
right.
would this is useless. It's already voted.
Is there like a high amount of violence or crime
not here.
inside
It's Mr.
those?
Rogers' neighborhood.
Yeah.
If you want to be homeless here.
Sure.
If you starve to death, you're retarded. You don't want to be homeless in Vegas. You don't be homeless in Chicago.
Sure.
That's scary.
Yeah.
I ended up meeting Danielle from Little Pedal Alliance, the organization helping put on the protests outside City Hall. We began to tell her about our film, and she suggested that we come stay a night out there with them to get a better idea of what it's like to live in a tent downtown. So I decided to do it. I wasn't sure what to expect with sleeping in a tent downtown, but I really felt that doing this would give me perspective that I would have never gotten otherwise. I definitely was nervous, but I felt like I had to do it. After letting my parents know, I told Danielle I'd be there Friday night. Last week, at the end of recording interviews outside City Hall, we met Jesse. We spoke with him for a bit, and he told me he lived in a tent right around the corner on Cesar Chavez Street. Well, I ended up running back into him at City Hall that night and spent most of the evening with him and another guy I'd met earlier, Robert. I talked to them for quite some time about what their daily life is like, their history, their thoughts on camping bans, and life itself. Robert and Jesse seemed like any other person I've met before. In a different situation, they seemed like people I could be friends with. It's hard to believe their life is always like this, while at the same time, my life is drastically different. I talked to many people throughout the day. I met a woman who went by the name of Jones. Jones was so nice and seemed very intelligent. I had heard Jones was schizophrenic, and when I asked her about this, she proceeded to tell me that what she had was dissociative identity disorder and explained the difference. There was also some tension between groups and people surrounding City Hall. There was a man with the Proud Boys flag draped over his tent. Through this tension and research later on, I later learned that Proud Boys have been known to commit violence against homeless communities across America. But many of these claims seem to not have a lot of real hard evidence, so it's really hard to say. I stayed in a one-person tent on the corner of 2nd and Lavaca. I think this is the part I was most worried about. I didn't pack much, just a backpack with a couple of snacks, a jacket, and the case that held my GoPro. I had stayed up until about 3 a.m. that night. There were moments where I felt like I was about to fall asleep, and then someone would drive by yelling, "Go get a fucking job," or "Wake the fuck up," while blaring their horn. Also, numerous drunk groups of friends leaving the bars that would just noisily walk by. So many times, I'd walk home or to a friend's house just like them. And now I'm experiencing something that I've done a million times from inside a tent across the street. I probably slept for about 2.5 hours. I was a little paranoid, waking up to how quiet and empty the streets of Austin were at this time of night. I can't think of a time where I was more grateful to have a bed and an AC. Texas heat in May is brutal. If I'm being honest, I don't think I could have dealt with that much longer. And to think I only had a backpack with some stuff in it, I have no clue what I would do with everything I own in tow and not having a safe place to live and keep my things. And every day I think about how hard life would be without the things that I consider basic and have sometimes taken for granted. I think about these people every day still. Where they are, how they're doing, if they're safe or not, or maybe if their situation has changed at all. As much as it weighs on me, I do hope they're all safe, that they're okay, and making progress towards safe housing. I was filming a time lapse when I was spending the night at City Hall, and during that time lapse, a guy came up to me. He walked past me, and then he came back, and he said something to me. I didn't hear him at first, and then he shows me his hand, and he was like, "I got shot in the hand today," and a big hole in his hand right here.
What is the crazy thing? What's that? I got shot in the hand too.
Holy shit.
Crazy, right?
I hope you're all right, man. You good?
And that wasn't the only gunshot wound that I saw that night, which is honestly not something I expected to see. I didn't get exactly what I was looking for from staying out there at City Hall. I still felt like there was so much that I was missing. We began to speak to a number of other homeless people that we found out were not at the protest.
We found that a lot of these people have been told by other people that are displaced out here that Austin's a great place to come and live, you know, because they allow you to live in a tent.
I was told later on that was a terrible representation of the homeless community.
I have a person that I have been, you know, trying to help out a little bit that, you know, lives down underneath one of the bridges right now. And he panhandles right outside the Royal Blue, which is a little grocery store around the corner from my place. And he always really touched my heart because one day I went into the Royal Blue and I'd had a few beers. I was kind of, you know, buzzing and thought, hey, you know, see this guy sitting there, I'm gonna ask him if he wants a beer, you know? So I asked him if I could get him a drink or anything, and he said all he wanted was a water and an Almond Joy. And that really took me back.
My name is Labron McKay. I'm 49 years old from Austin, Texas.
Unable to link with Labron, and on our way home, we came across a man playing guitar by the name of Jeff. Upon talking with him for a minute, we learned that he was formerly homeless and has since gotten sober and now has his own apartment on the south side.
Yeah, we're brand new?
Yes, bro. I love brand new. Oh, yeah.
All right. Off spot, lightning rod. My pain is peeling. Million suns won't fill you up. You can't see the wine flowing over your cup. This way, dancing dead. One more time I'm feeling. Pass the plate and you sit back down. And back to your hole in the woods underground. Wait.
Well, if you just want to start by introducing yourself.
Sure. So, my name is Jeffrey Allen Zimpelman. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I am 32 years old.
I grew up in Gerald, Texas. Population was like 600 and something people at the time. It's like a town so small that you couldn't pass gas in your living room without them knowing what you ate on the other side of town in like 5 minutes. You know, it was that small. And
I felt like I was, you know, someone who was, like you had a lot of potential, you know. I have a whole lot of friends growing up. You know, I wasn't a popular student or a popular kid, but I was smart. I actually went to a lot of advanced classes and stuff like that because that's what they told me, you know. Oh, you know, have ideas, you think for yourself, and we're gonna put you in these smart classes. I guess I always just wanted to be accepted, you know. And so coming to Austin was kind of part of that.
when I hit the streets at 14, Austin was the first place that I came to. And I remember packing my backpack, walking out the front door, and my mom going, "Where do you think you're going?" And I thought I was being all slick, and I put my finger in the air, and I was like, it depends on which way the wind's blowing. And it was blowing towards Austin, so I was like, I'm going to Austin. And, you know, I kind of expected her to say, son, you know, think about this, and, you know, don't leave. She turns around and goes, well, send me a postcard when you get there.
A typical day, what does that look like these days, like maybe the last couple years?
Well, I don't really like the word typical because that means that if I'm going to get stuck in a rut, I try to change my routine up a little bit every day so it's not the same. Instead of sitting in front of the Royal Blue flying my sign, I might do what I call the $5 hop. The $5 hop is like where I'll get on the bus and I'll go way up to like 32nd Street and I'll slowly make my way downtown and I'll just find places that look like they might be a good place to fly a sign that I haven't gone to yet. And I'll go and I'll sit there long enough to make $5, then I'll get up, get on the bus, and go find another spot to sit, and sit there until I make $5, and I'll get up and go along, and Usually, if I do a $5 hop, by the time I get from like 32nd to downtown, I'll have like 30, 40 bucks in my pocket.
If you're out on the street, you have to sleep wherever the hell you find. I wasn't never a tent person, man. I never set up a tent under a bridge, you know. I just pretty much slept wherever I could sleep, you know, at the side of a building or, you know, wherever seemed like somebody wasn't going to come and tell me not to be there. Because really, people just look at me like, this guy's a homeless guy that used to be homeless and, oh, good for him, now he's getting sober. But they really don't give a shit, you know. They don't actually ask me what it was like you're doing right now, what it was like from day to day, you know, to be homeless and go through that. You know, I knew Austin was a music city and I'm a musician, so I thought, let me just come here and see what happens. And unfortunately, I got hooked on drugs.
Have you ever struggled with drugs or alcohol or anything like
Yes,
that?
sir, I have.
Yeah?
Anybody that's homeless and is living on the streets for any amount of time, if they tell you that they haven't had a drug problem or don't have a drug problem, they're lying to you. Because when you live on the streets and you have to deal with stuff out here on a daily basis, self-medication sometimes is the only way you can get through it. And unfortunately, if you're new to the streets and you don't know how to deal with it and you start self-medicating or whatever you would choose to call it at a young age, and you get hooked into it, it's hard to get out of it.
You know, I've been on the Greyhound bus for 25 hours coming down here. I came here and immediately the first person I met when I moved here took me downtown. I was like, this nice girl, right? Said, I'm going to show you around. I'm going to show you around town and get you used to what Austin, Texas is all about. And she took me downtown and she bought a blunt, right? And this girl immediately was like, here, do you want to smoke this blunt? I'm like, oh, weed, cool. And it ended up being synthetic weed, which is basically what they call K2. And from then on, I was basically addicted to it.
I used to be a big drinker. Actually, in my early 20s, I was a real big drinker, which is wild because now I don't even drink at all now. But I got I was into meth real bad in my mid-20s and 30s, and it took divine intervention for me to have to stop all that, be able to stop all of that.
So I've gone through a total transformation, right? Learning to be someone who is just a smart, book-smart school student and impressing everybody with his intelligence, to all of a sudden having to learn the street ways of being, you know, street savvy and smart so you don't get screwed over every single day. Most people don't want to go to work, okay? Most people don't want to, you know, go to even day labor where they can make money the same day, you know? Most people just want to sit back and relax and go panhandle for money. And I'm the type of person that was even trying to make money working at the same time, but I can't because I have all this luggage I'm carrying around and my guitar, you know, just to throw that in, you know, and most of the time my guitars get stolen.
Like, how are you going to get a job? How are you going to get anything done if you don't have the basic necessities? You need to be able to take a shower. You need to be able to lock your door and not, you know, fear that all of your belongings are stolen when you leave your place to maybe go try and find some work.
And thousands of people in the city don't have any access to that at all, or very rare access.
I need a shower worse than no one needed a pooper scooper. Let's put it that way.
So it's not just as simple as just get a job, you know. I mean, there's just so much to it. I mean, okay, let me go get a job, but first I'm hungry and I don't have any money, so let me go to the food pantry at this specific time and wait in this specific line, and then when I'm done with that, I'll try to go to this place and get a new ID since someone stole my ID since I'm sleeping on the freaking street.
If you have no form of ID whatsoever, you're damn almost not going to be able to get any form of ID whatsoever. Because you have to have, they tell you that you need 3 forms of ID to get ID. You know, if I had 3 forms of ID, I wouldn't be sitting there talking to you, Turkey. I'd be out there buying something with my ID, you know?
Think about it from the perspective of you're the guy that's hiring and somebody just drug in all of their belongings in a bag and hasn't showered in 3 or 4 weeks or months even. Another thing that I've heard a lot of is
to just talk about getting a job at McDonald's, but they don't have the things that they even need to even walk into the door to apply for a job at a place like McDonald's.
So imagine sleeping in a random spot, right? Having your blanket, and all of a sudden, okay, great, it's the next day. Let me zip up my blanket and carry it around because I gotta sleep on it tonight again. But I can't go into a job and say, hey, hire me. Look, I'm dirty and homeless carrying a blanket around, because they're not gonna hire you like that, dude. And that's the sad part about it is an endless cycle,
Whether you think you've got it bad or not, just know like there are people that have it way worse than you and that want to pull themselves out of it, but literally have no means to do it from the stance of they can't even typically get a job because they haven't showered,
And that's pretty much, the main thing I would say is like, it's like you're running in a rat race, man, like a maze. Like you have to go here, you have to go there, you have to go there. And at the end of the day, you're like, damn, man, I might as well drink a beer or smoke a blunt and fucking forget about it, I mean, this shit is really sad.
Part of the reasons that I've been homeless for the last 15 years is I've been dealing with medical situations.
Could you just list off the medical issues that you have, and what you need for them?
IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. I have GERD, which is gastroacid acid reflux disease. I've got to go back in a week to the gastrologist to do a endoscope. I've had my medication changed 3 times in the past month because it just doesn't. They had me on the wrong medication for a while that was actually working against each other. I got some dental stuff. I need some dental work done. They think that I might be developing Crohn's disease. In the last year and a half, I have been to the emergency room 70 times by ambulance. And they've not let me make it past the emergency room at all. They've kicked me out. When I've complained about not being treated properly, instead of treating me properly, they have security escort me out because they don't want to deal with it. They're not letting me pass the ER because I don't have insurance, one. And they keep telling me every time I go in, they think that I'm drug seeking. And if someone's in there trying to get high and they're jonesing, they're not going to lay in that bed for 2 hours waiting to get high. They're going to be like, screw this, I got to go somewhere and get a fix. So that's why they do that, to see who's going to stay there and who doesn't stay. But at the same time, if you're sitting there, and like at one time I had kidney stones, there was blood in my urine sample that I gave them. I was obviously in bad shape. They still did not let me make it past the ER. I had to go to a different hospital and have them tell me that I had the kidney stones. And trying to get proper medical help in Austin, Texas, if you're homeless, you'd have more fun trying to screw a polar bear in a phone booth.
On May 25th, 2021, newest Austinite Joe Rogan sat down with Mayor Steve Adler for an interview on the homelessness issue here in Austin. Mayor Adler states that there are about 250 people experiencing extreme homelessness.
Example, the 250 people that are most chronically experiencing homelessness, that have the most significant challenges they're dealing with, the frequent flyers in our emergency rooms and in jails and all that, are costing our collective community about $220,000 a year.
250
people each, $220,000 a year.
Each person?
Each person. About $50 million our community pays every year for those 250 people.
That seems like a problem.
If you look at other cities around the country, like LA, they've got $1 billion budget for their homeless communities, and they've got over 100,000 homeless people. We've got, just over 3,000 people in Austin. The recorded number of those experiencing homelessness in Austin is 3,160. The recorded number of those experiencing homelessness in LA is 66,436.
So that got us thinking. We did some research and found that the entire Austin-Travis County homeless population could basically fit inside of Moody Theater. and the entire homeless population of Los Angeles, LA County could fit into Gillette Stadium, the home of the New England Patriots.
It would take 1,329 buses at 50 passengers each to get them to Gillette Stadium. We found the average miles per gallon of a diesel bus to be about 6 miles per gallon. We found the average distance a tank of gas on these passenger buses can get to be about 330 miles per tank. We found the distance from LA to Gillette Stadium to be 2,930 miles, so it would take you roughly 9 stops for gas for each bus. 9 times 1,329 equals 11,961 stops for gas for all of the buses. We found the amount of gallons that each bus holds to be 56 gallons. At an average of $3 per gallon, one fill-up would cost around $168.
$168 times 11,961 stops equals $2,001,888 one way.
So if we double that, that equals $4,018,896. We found the average price of a Patriots ticket to be $131. Take the average ticket price times the LA homeless population, 131 times 66,436 equals $8,703,116. 8 home games during the season, so times $8,703,116 equals $69,624,928. Tickets plus transportation would equal you $73,643,824.
That's less than 10% of their entire budget. You could send the entire homeless population in Los Angeles to and from every single New England Patriots home game, and they still wouldn't touch even 10% of their total budget.
That's completely manageable when you compare it to 100,000 people and $1 billion budget.
I think we're going to be the first city to be able to accomplish that kind of turn in that period of time. And it only happens because our challenge at this point is about average.
The problem, though, here is that they want to basically take their failed model that's occurred for the last 3 fiscal years when they spent $161 million, and they want to triple it for the next 3 years to $515 million to house 3,000 people. You don't take a failed model without any transparency or accountability, triple it, and have any credibility that that plan is going to work better. Yeah. More money on a failed model wastes more money, and that's the reality of the situation. My understanding is that fewer than 1,000 new beds for the homeless were provided by that $161 million.
I mean, people see it in this city right now because of what the council did 2 years ago. So it is, in everybody's face right now. And people want to do something about it, which is great. But what they don't want to do, I don't think, is send people back to the woods. They want people out of tents. It is inappropriate. It is wrong to have people tenting on our streets or in our overpasses. That is not a good place for them. It might be better than being in the woods, but it is a bad place for people to be. And we have to get tents gone.
We do take on the fact that there's an oversight problem in our city. And there's a lack of knowledge and a lack of curiosity on behalf of the mayor, the city council, their staff.
So part of it is new people. Part of it is giving greater capacity to the services that exist so they can create more slots. But that's where we are right now.
Our main mission of this film was to humanize this subject. We realized this really sensitive and complex subject was just kind of being reduced to line graphs and bar graphs and numbers and news clips. When it's really overlooking the fact that these are people that may have lived regular lives at one point.
Being on the street and playing guitar when I'm not homeless is funny because people look at me and go, that's just a homeless guy trying to make money. But especially in Austin, I see it as like, a cultural thing, even just being a street musician is cool to me, and if I need a couple of dollars or whatever, I'll go out and do it, but it's not just for the money all the time. It's just because, I feel like this is something that's, awesome.
I think I personally narrowed down to doing these 2 specific stories about Labron and Jeff because they're both musicians. and Austin is a music city. And even myself, I moved here from Cibolo to come to Austin to be a musician.
I want to give some credit to God, because I do have faith in God, whether you guys do or not. I do want to give some credit to God because I feel like I prayed a lot during that situation. Like I said, the two things that got me through that situation was the kindness of people, my music, and my faith.
When you see someone on the street that's homeless, and you can tell they're having a bad time, before you judge them, just think about this. That person could be one of my relatives. That could be my brother. That could be my mother. That could be my father. And if I wasn't here, wouldn't you want someone to help your mother or your father or your brother if they were in that situation?
I would say to anybody who is in my situation, like, you're not special. I hate to say that. It sounds really rude, but life is what it is, you know? Like, I wish, to be honest, even though I was considered a smart kid in school, I wish I would have just gone out there and got a job and started making and saving money and learned more about finances and how to live and take care of myself.
It's all about just giving people the opportunity to try and help better themselves, and you'll be surprised what just believing in someone will do for them. And at that point, like, you know, you've always heard that expression, you can, you know, give a person a fish and feed them for the day, or, you know, teach them how to fish and then they can feed themselves for their life. You know, that's kind of the perspective we need to take.
Dustin's belief in me is like a great example of what believing in someone can do. And not that Dustin was the sole reason that I'm able to do what I'm doing today, but it's people like him that help me feel good about what I'm doing.
He got me the tent that I stayed in. I'm about to cry. He hasn't lost his empathy. He still cares. He's nice and polite every time he sees me. And says hello every time he sees me. It means a lot. When you're used to sitting there all day long and people are walking by looking at you like you're shit and not saying hello, turning their head away from you. Just to have somebody that comes by and says hello and smiles at you, let you know that you're worth something, goes a long way.
And so holding on to, my music that I do, and even though I've been through 1,000 different guitars and people have stolen my guitars or whatever, and like holding on to my faith in God and having random shit happen like that, because when you're homeless, you're pretty much hopeless, dude.
But it's not going to happen just because, you know, we tell them to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You know, what bootstraps? Some of these people don't even have shoes, you know?
Love is all we need. The Beatles said it best.
Yeah, brother.
I have not talked to or heard from Jeff since our interview. We told him we would keep in touch any way that we could, and our plan was to record the song that he played and wrote with his friend. Like, as a musician, it just really crushes me that I wasn't ever able to get in touch with him to finish that and do that for him.
One of the things that Labron said in his interview that like almost made me cry was like, he's like, Dustin, you know, changes my day because he'll look down at me and say hello. Like, something as easy as looking and saying hello to somebody can change their day.
Really, dude, human contact, really honestly, human contact, human relationship.
In my opinion, I just think it's a symptom of a much bigger problem. The butterfly effect from something like that, it is very real, and I think going through the process of making this film has made that a lot more evident.
In starting this documentary and, you know, going down there and starting to film stuff, you know, we started to grow our perspective and understand a little bit more about what some of these people are experiencing. It's just really motivated me to try and, you know, give back more than, you know, than we take.
Pretty soon after we started making this film, my my whole perspective changed on all of the things that most people that are not homeless take very much for granted.
My heart goes out to them. I mean, it's a rough world out there, and
I think Jeff put it the best way about you have a hell of a day, and at the end of the day, you just want to have a beer or smoke a blunt or something, and I think everybody can resonate with that a little bit.
Just smile at people. Like, just because someone's sitting on the street doesn't mean that they're just a piece of shit. Like, they're a person, you know? Like, you don't know what's happened to them, and they don't know anything about you. So there's no need to, like, harass them. Just, you know, acknowledge them, tell them hello, you know, encourage them. Try and be someone that they would, you know, want to be like. Don't be a dick.
Our goal was to humanize this subject and bring back to light the fact that these are people that at one point may have lived regular lives.
You don't know hardly anything about these people. I mean, there's some things that you may guess right, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that guide someone's trajectory through life. And it's just one of those things that I think is important to look at and not try and jump to judgment.
So I think everybody that worked on this film with us had a little bit different kind of initial approach on the subject because we all had different understandings.
Let's get these people some housing and get them a stepping stone in the right direction where they can actually start to, you know, progress in their life again and not be, you know, just in this endless cycle of living on the streets and not having anything to show for it, you know?
But yes, I'm definitely on my way up. I've applied for SSI, medical benefits, but I should be hearing something from that in a couple of months. And I'm just going full speed with music from here on out, because that's pretty much all I've got.
So the closing message would just be this. Austin can be a world-class city. It's not right now. We're never going to get there until we turn the city around. We stop doing stupid things and we start doing smart things. And we elect people who are committed to making our community better for everyone.
You know, I told you I had a pretty decent childhood. Like, I probably sound like a spoiled brat, and I'm not the best person in the world. And I know people have it a lot worse than me, you know. But you guys asked me to do this, and I thought I would come in and just tell you my perspective.
Eventually the game's gonna be over.
Yep, for sure.
No matter what you're playing, eventually the game's gonna be over. So you just gotta score as high as you can before the last inning.